If I call the meeting to order at 12:18, we are being recorded and it will be made available on the Channel 79 system. It's the first meeting of the year for the Advisory Committee on Sustainability, now here on January 8th, 2025. We are called to order. We can't welcome our guests because they're not here yet, which was the first item on the agenda. And I do not see anyone here who is on the line to make public comment. From what I can tell, no. So we will just move right on to business with the approval of the special meeting minutes for our November meeting, which I'm sorry, Lauren, was such a confusion on my end of finding the edited version. But Mohan wasn't at the meeting, so I would make a motion to approve the minutes that Lauren had submitted with Cliff's adjustments to them for our November meeting. So I motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Yes.
Cliff. Okay. And all in favor, given that there are Mohan, you can't vote. You weren't at the meeting.
Yeah, I'm in favor to approve.
I'm in favor.
Okay, that would be the three of us. We're missing Amanda. Okay. Hello, we have a guest, our arrival at our meeting, John
Howdy, friends.
Zagrodzky.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And I know you know Lauren. Yeah. Have you met Mohan before?
I don't know. We haven't spent time talking. I've seen you and know who you are and all of that, Mohan, but nice to connect with everybody. It's a great day.
Nice
on the
to
meeting
connect
last
with you.
time I was on the Selectmen's Committee, right? Your presentation, so I was there. So I've seen John.
Terrific. Okay.
Yes. And Cliff Van Voorhees is on the phone. He's driving. He's a man of much movement. So Cliff is with us. Amanda Craig is not here. She had a conflict. We are hoping that possibly Mr. Denmark will listen in if he's interested in joining the committee. So I would like to get through this sort of the organizing stuff really fast so we could talk among ourselves. And while we've got John with us on what we're going to do in the next, couple of months to the year. The first organizing matter was the regular schedule, which we had discussed at the last meeting, being Wednesdays at 12:15, once a month, second Wednesday of the month. That's what we did today, and I would like to submit that as the regular schedule to the town for the year. Is there any discussion about that? That's what we had agreed last time. Mohan, you weren't here. We would keep the Wednesday noon, but we'd move it to 12:15, and we were mixed on Zoom versus local. So date and time, okay? Anybody?
Yeah, I have a question. If we're only meeting one time per month, if we're going to move forward with sustainable CT, I think we're going to need more time than that, especially with the projects that we're looking at. Do all of the meetings have to be formal, recorded on video, or can we have separate subcommittee and other meetings amongst ourselves?
Yeah, so the rules on that are pretty clear. If a board creates formal subcommittees to tackle a task, unfortunately, those need to be treated as groups that are representing the work of the town, and therefore those need to be made public and need to have minutes and need to be scheduled, whether TV 79 televises them as a separate matter. But I know when I did IT subcommittee work for the Board of Selectmen, for example, all that needed to be televised. One way to approach that is instead of creating committees, you can actually have parties of one or someone going off and working on a particular topic to gather information, and then to report those findings and perspectives to the Sustainability Committee as a whole. But unless you want to, if you do form a subcommittee that has sort of a formal charter within the overall Sustainability Committee, that's going to trigger it becoming something where you'd have to have agendas and a recorded meeting. By the way, just to clarify, you don't have to have been at a prior meeting to vote on minutes. So anybody who's on a committee might have corrections to minutes, all of that, even though they weren't there. So if you're in the meeting, you can vote on minutes, even if you weren't at the meeting before.
Thank you, John. That was not how it was in the condo association for which I was secretary. So
Robert's
back
rules
out
of
who wasn't
orders.
there. Thank
Yeah.
you. Good. Good to know. Lauren, one of the ways.
Just to clarify John's point, Kathy, if two people get together and meet and work on something, would that be a formal meeting?
No, it doesn't constitute a
Quorum.
What triggers it is if you're going to officially charter a subcommittee to go out and explore a topic, right? And the spirit of that is, well, if that subcommittee is going to go off and formally explore a topic, well, we kind of like to know what those conversations are, and therefore there should be warned meetings and minutes from those meetings at a minimum. But if you've got two people all talking about no particular topic, they just go off and start to spend time thinking about things offline. No, that's not a formal topic that's assigned that's going to generate this requirement.
For example, I'm trying to think of with Sustainable CT, if we all agree we're going to approach that application and there are different deadlines throughout the year and which one we want to go for and who's going to work on that's a little bit down the road, a couple of months. You're right. There would ultimately, close to an application, be additional scheduled meetings. The way we split that application was because there are 13 topic areas and sub actions within them. We assigned those actions to individuals to work with the people in town at town hall or nonprofits to gather the information, and then we would report back and give updates, and we were keeping track sort of in that spreadsheet form on what was done. The other thing is all of the work for that app goes into Sustainable CT and can be seen if you have permission to get into our application. So it was never an issue. When we needed more meetings, we had them, but we didn't need to schedule them until we really knew what that deadline was. And to John's point, like Mohan did some research with Tony Campanella on electric vehicle infrastructure, where they were looking at grant money and what New Canaan was doing and what our providers would do for the electric company and things like that. So we didn't consider that a meeting. That was research that Mohan did with an individual where they were gathering some information, and then Mohan would report. Tony and I went to New Canaan and we saw this is their plan, and we never went to a decision-making point. We don't have the decision-making, but Mohan got to the idea of what the steps might be, but it never went anywhere. But I didn't consider that John a committee. He was a person who was working directly with a staff member on a particular research project. So I'm assuming those kinds of things, if we're working with Ed on how to get another food scrap bin, that's not a committee meeting. That reporting on that at committee, this is our goal, this is what we're trying to do. I mean, is that a fair understanding of how we would work with a staff member project?
The Connecticut rules really apply to, I mean, my understanding is that these are formally chartered subcommittees. So if you come out and say, I'm going to appoint these 3 individuals and you guys are going to work on this particular topic and all of that, the rules are pretty clear, and I've got them here in front of me. The committee meetings of public bodies are generally required to be open under the open meetings law or similar legislation. But if random people are getting together to have discussions and talking about things without that sort of formal charter, then that gets into whether you've got a quorum or not. So for example, you could go off and have a conversation separately with Lauren, just saying, oh, what did you think about the meeting the other day? Or how do we think about all of this? Or do you have anything on your mind? That type of thing. That doesn't rise to this sort of meeting simply because it's not a quorum and it's not a formally chartered subcommittee. I'll reconfirm all that, but that's been my long understanding.
Okay. So do we agree now that I will submit the schedule that was presented at the last meeting for the second Wednesday of the month at 12:15? And the question of location was always Zoom from COVID on, except for the last meeting we had last month in November. And I really need to know to get the most of us working together. I'm sort of leaning towards this being Zoom unless anyone has a strong recommendation that they should be in person. Any comments, Mohan, Lauren?
Yeah, I was the one who was thinking, honestly, yep, Zoom's fine most of the time, but I think we should have the opportunity to meet because face to
Okay.
face is entirely different, right? Because yeah, Zoom is Zoom. At least we should have a mixed hybrid version of this, maybe alternative months or whatever, so that at least we get to see each other, because there could be other dialogues we can have instead of
Agreed.
simply Zoom people.
And you can sneak away on advance notice if we identify a certain meeting as in
Yeah,
person.
that's
Okay.
fine. Yeah, we can
Lauren,
plan.
would that work for you, or are you better at remote?
Either way, I think once a month, things tend to slip away if that's the only real contact we're having, and things can get missed or skipped, and focus kind of dwindles if it's only a once a month meeting. So, my suggestion would be once a month, more than once a month, but that's just my thoughts.
Cliff?
I'm in favor of hybrid meetings.
Because you travel back and forth to between two homes, right?
Well, not only that, but there are other members of the committee at any given point who might be able to attend hybrid, but not in person. So it creates flexibility that I think is very helpful. On the other hand, ideally, we'd be in person. So hybrid, I think, is the answer for me.
Okay. Let me work with town hall. I'm still going to make those dates, the 12 dates, as the permanent, because from a FOIA point of view, we have to publish a set of meetings. We can always add to them, but we have to have a published thing. I will submit that, but I will find out how we could do it hybrid. John, I don't know if you guys do your meetings where both remote and in person, or if it's one or the other.
To be honest, I like to do one or the other. I think if you have a hybrid where some people are there in person and some people are on video, that the ones on video, their participation is not as substantive, and it's harder to hear and follow the conversation and be fully engaged. And so I would say if folks are going to be absent, or it's during the day where it's just simply easier to convene by videos, just make the whole thing video. And that way everybody's on kind of equal footing for the discussion. So I think I've only done one meeting where I've done hybrid. The rest are all either all Zoom or all in person.
Okay. Okay. I think I will send you guys maybe a proposal to identify some in person and some hybrid, and some in person and some remote. And before I submit the schedule, I can submit the dates, but maybe we can alternate one, something like that, and see how that goes. Because we can always change that if people can't get there to town hall. All right. Officers, we did not elect a vice chair at the last meeting because Mohan wasn't at the meeting, and we wanted to elect him. And so Lauren is our secretary, and Mohan, I would like to nominate you, if you would accept, to be the vice chair, to really be the backup to the chair. If there was a meeting I couldn't go to, you would be the one that would run the meeting. You sort of just provide, a little poke in my back if I need it. It wasn't a huge amount of additional work beyond the committee work that you would like to work on.
Yep, that's fine, Kathy. I'm good.
Anybody want to? I motion to nominate Mohan.
Second,
Sarah.
All in favor?
aye.
Mohan, you can vote for yourself.
I can vote for myself too. I didn't know that. Okay. Yes, my
Okay,
vote
thank you.
counts.
Okay. Next agenda item, and this would be interesting, John. We have the Darien Recycling Center does have social media accounts that have been active for Instagram and Facebook, and I believe what was Twitter. The person who worked on those and posted to them was Carolyn Bain in 2020, for many years up through 2023. We also began working with Marley Hayes in 2023 to share information that would go out on the town's social media, or sometimes in the town newsletter if there was something with food scraps or an Earth Day event.
Yes, and Juliet Kane and Natalie Tallis, I see she's listing in. they've been submitting environmental related topics and sort of short messages, if you will, for Marley to include in the town newsletter. I'm not sure what the frequency of that has been, but it's been good stuff. And so maybe there's a way that between you guys and her, there could be some coordination, or maybe it's separate. I don't know, but just as an FYI, she and
No,
Julie.
yes, I think we would like to contact Marley and see how she wants to work with us. I mean, we did work with her in 2023. In fact, her position and the work she did was documented by me. Me was the one who wrote this one up about the work of communicating with towns got points for sustainable CT because it covered a variety of different forms of media and ways of interacting with town hall, with websites and things like that. So her position in the work she did was actually a point getter for our certification. So on the bit about our own accounts, do you have no problem with continuing as we did with our little posts on dairy and recycling, which were things like what's in, what's out, don't put your wrapping paper in the recycling, here's a tip for Earth Day. That was the kind of work that was going out. It's a small, but we would do it, and then sometimes Marley would blast it out to a further group. Lauren has said she'd be willing to work on what those public education messages from us would be, if you're okay with us just continuing the way that had been. Those accounts still exist, and Carolyn is the one who's been the author.
Yeah. And just to caveat that, Kathy, I think that we need some structure behind them and planning and organization.
Absolutely.
So that was
I'm just trying to get some started. I just want to get us started to say who's going to work on what, because so much of what we would do, we would go off and pull together and then talk about it the next meeting. So there's someone who wants to chime in. Sure. Are you muted or unmuted?
I'm now unmuted. Hi, I'm
Happy New Year, Natalie. How are you doing?
Happy New Year, JZ. Hi. And hello, Sustainability Committee. So I will, if you tell us who the point person is for the town newsletter, I think given what you said in terms of ideas and what we've actually submitted, that it makes sense to collaborate. We've done a lot on recycling and I can send you a copy of what we've listed, but rather than duplicate or have Marley have to kind of decide one or the other, maybe we can have a conversation. And I don't know if that's you or I'm confused. Are you Karen? Who's chair?
I'm sorry. I'm on my on the work computer. My name is Kathy Finnegan.
Oh, you're Kathy. Okay.
Yes. And Lauren has agreed to work on some of the social media. So I see social media as two parts. One is what we communicate out on our own Instagram, Facebook page, and anybody can go see what used to be posted, and then coordinating with the town on messages that we want to do. So Lauren's right. There has to be some structure and ideas. And if you're doing things for what commission are you doing it for?
So this is part of the newsletter. There are Juliette Kane, Julie Jones, and I do some work with John. And so I'm really only trying to make the newsletter easier. It's not about the rest of your social media, but I think Lauren's already been in touch with some folks who I know about a couple of issues, so I can reach out to her and she can report back to your committee if that works.
Yeah,
I mean, it might make more of an impact and have, meaningful messages that are, well thought out and continue to kind of reiterate them across multiple different approaches. Like, for example, if Carolyn's going to tweet them on the Swap Shop page and we can do it for sustainability and you guys can do it in the newsletter, then there's, that same powerful message that's clear and communicated properly and efficiently. It's not just like a little cartoon or something that's like ad hoc, right? So I think I'd like, to just maybe talk about the strategy amongst ourselves and the other organizations and see if we can, make it more powerful.
So Lauren, I'll reach out. I don't want to take up your committees, and I'll explain to you what Green Wave is and what we're doing. And I think you'll be very happy I agree with everything you said. And now I'm going to leave your meeting, but I will reach out to you after.
Thanks, Natalie.
Yep.
Thank you, Natalie.
Just to build a little on this conversation, you may recall in my State of the Town address, one of the things I mentioned is that these environmental topics, I've spent a lot of time with Natalie, Julie Jones, and others. A lot of our environmental issues in town are addressed through a series of very fragmented groups, right? So you've got sustainability with its own mission, EPC, which is kind of a official government body that looks at environmental things regarding new developments in town. You've got coastal advisory that's focused on some environmental stuff on our waterways and coastal areas. And then you've got really not much more than that just sort of pulls it all together. I don't know whether we need an environmental committee per se, but I've worried, and as Natalie and Juliet particularly have educated me, is that we don't have that kind of centralized focus that says when we're talking about all these issues, here's where you go to for our best minds, for getting your questions answered, for how this is being thought of in a holistic way. And so one of the things I'd like to think about over the course of 2025, and you guys will be front and center in terms of helping with this, and will likely be part of whatever we end up forming, is there a better way to do this? I love the idea of a sustainability committee, but gosh, the issues are a lot bigger than that. At the same time, I don't want to create a regulatory body with enforcement powers. I'm not sure that the town's ready for something like that. And frankly, there's enough enforcement at a state and federal level to keep us all busy. That said, there's a whole lot of just best practices and education and encouragement that we could do that's hard to message. And kind of to your point, Lauren, about outreach, if we've got all these different bodies, I mean, I don't know, there's no kind of central voice on some of this stuff that makes it all just seems kind of fragmented. So don't need to discuss it now, but I am going to be reaching out, and I'd like to be on as many of your meetings as possible to kind of keep this discussion going. We're going to have a lot of public input on all this in terms of how we could shape this, but having a much better answer in place now for how we deal with environmental issues in town by the end of this year is my objective. So more to come.
And that's refreshing to hear that. I've seen it in other towns where has been fragmented and has been brought together. And
nice.
I think
you're
on point. I've seen it, it's funny, I was sitting at our parade, and I don't want to get us all off track, but just real quick anecdote, sitting at our parade, and they said green team, and then they kind of brought all the different or like nonprofits together, and the land trust and the beautification and this. And I've served on a bunch of these, volunteered for them, worked in a bunch of these different organizations and departments within the town. And when we had in the past, I don't know if we still have it. It was called the Green Team here, John, and they were marching in the parade together, and it was members of all the different organizations. And so I thought, oh, we do have something that brings them. And then I realized we don't. Officially. And so, I've been realizing, because recently I've been researching more of these sustainable CT certification topics, which I know is not a top priority on our agenda, but it seems that we can get some freebies that we maybe have missed in the past if we bring these organizations together and have some discussions about some of those things as well. So there are some that we could get some basically free points, no brainers, low hanging fruit kind of stuff.
And sustainable qualification points is what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few things that some of these other organizations and departments, I believe, may have already been doing and may meet some of these. I don't know how deep we dug into this before because I wasn't on the commission, but I'd love to dig into that, and maybe just a separate meeting just about that. With those other organizations.
Lauren, I think you're tossing me a softball here, because one of my notes for discussion is that I was going to bring up is this is not the solution to the town's problems, but it is an organization that does exist. And I think it grows and wanes in strength as the people that are working and their passions and their powerful, ideas. And I think there's an opportunity right now with, reintroducing our group to the Green Team. The Green Team has its next meeting at 9:15 on the 13th at DCA or via Zoom. They send their invite to approximately 50 people at least in the town of Darien. There are people on the Nature Center, there are people on the Land Trust, there are people, I get it from my work over past years. Paolo Sardoni is the chair of this green team right now. And their agenda for this week is a beautification update, coordination of events for Earth Day or Earth Week around the town, and volunteers for schools. And I know that two of the most passionate things that the group of people who have been on this committee that became the sustainability committee as opposed to the recycling and energy committee was to branch out to be able to connect with some of these other groups. So where those projects lead, where there are connections, I don't know. And I haven't gone to a green team meeting for probably a year plus. I can go for the first from 9:15 to 9:45, but I have to be at work at 10. And I already asked Paolo if I could just introduce our committee again. But anybody who can go to that meeting, I can certainly get a list of who shows up, or anybody else can go, join me, stay the whole meeting. That would be fabulous, because I don't know what we can leverage. I certainly see leverage for Earth Week in April in terms of public education and things that we as the town can support what these organizations are doing. And those things do get points in Sustainable CT. If they're having a Nature Center day and we can provide the compost education, then that's our part of it, or if they're, whatever the event may be.
Can you forward the invite?
Would advertise that,
Can you forward the invite to us?
Yeah, I will. I just got it in my mail, and so I forwarded it on. So that's a place to see what that leads to, and I don't know what it is for this year. But John, it is where Juliet. I don't know who goes now. The Nature Center people, the Land Trust people.
So sorry. I'm just going to interrupt. That email list is we had to talk about it yesterday. We were up at the environmental summit in Hartford. Again, offline, Kathy, maybe when you're done with this meeting, and Lauren, I can update you and tell you what's going on with that. But it's there are a lot of Land Trust no longer participates, Pollinator Pathway no longer participates, Garden Club no longer participates.
Okay. So maybe that isn't the way, but again, without, we know there are a lot of what you do, Natalie, what people like Carolyn Bain has done relative to building a food scrap recycling program in town, what Juliet's done with Pollinator Pathway. There are people that are all working on different sides of the same coin and are probably thinking about how to capitalize on Earth Day. And if there's a way through the green team or green wave or whatever it is, then I think the town's role in this, and what we would advise, back to advising the selectmen, would be how can the town be supporting the efforts of the people? There is a tremendous amount of volunteer effort in this community, and the whole part of that application is to harness and to show what the town does and can do and move those things forward. I think that's really our role. It's not to come up with new things per se. It's to make sure that public is learning about things that exist and teaching them things they don't already know, whether it's through our own outreach or whether it's using those other organizations. And those do get points. Any group that, as long as the town is somehow associated with some event or activity that is moving ahead a health or an environmental concern, then that's considered a sustainable action by the community. That's how broad that is. And you're right. You could have a whole meeting on what we got points for and what we didn't get points for, once we decide that we're going to actually apply. All right. So we'll follow through with social media and communication after Natalie and Lauren have talked. And then Natalie, we can maybe talk relative to the bigger issue of green team or not. Moving on, knowing this meeting is going to be ending really quickly. We still have open positions. I do not see on the phone that on whether or not Mr. Denmark joined or not. I'm not.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm on. I was late. Sorry about that. I had a difficult time getting into the Zoom, but I am on. So thank you.
And I'm sorry that for some reason on this computer at my work, I can't seem to get everybody. I'm only seeing 4 people. So I didn't know you were there, but welcome. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for inviting me.
Let me see. I really want to get on to what things we can do. So I'd like to skip down knowing John has to go soon and skip down, we talked a little bit about communication, which was action six, was 6A was one of the things. But the food scrap program and the Board of Education, and then sort of follow up with any kind of research going on in the background that our really expert people like Mohan could do for the longer term, would be probably the three things that our time and our talent will work on with it, in addition to planning townwide events, educational events, newsletter events, whatever, having a booth at a town event with food scrap education or things like that. So we know the food scrap program is something that, if we could improve, would benefit the town by taking food waste out. We spent a lot of time for multiple years trying to make that happen, and I think it's pretty flat. I sent a chart to all of you which had the monthly weights through 2022, and I don't know if we can get a hold of that information for 2024 and sort of look at what comes out of the transfer station. Do you know, did you see that email, John, or not? I sent it to everybody yesterday. It's just the report. It's like a 12-month report by everything out of the transfer station. I can resend it to you. But for us to make some really smart recommendations on food scraps, it would be nice to have the data that we had through 2022 for 23 and 24. It's something that, it's the work that City Carting does, and you get a monthly report with the weight by item. It's like everything from municipal waste to batteries and everything in between. So we see over the month what we take away, and it has food scraps on it. Will let us know if that program is flat, and it's baseline to talk about what we do to improve it.
Is there coordination with the school district on this?
Right now, all of the food scrap work is only for the town. Which leads us to, we have no conversation with the schools, and we are itching to do that. We do not know who picks up their waste, how often, what it costs to be able to make any cost-based financial recommendations when their contracts end, but we do know they do not separate paper, plastics, or food from their waste. And
I'm going to I'll drop a note to the superintendent, and I'll copy you, Kathy, and say the sustainability is restarted for 2025, and this is an area of interest. It would be great if there could be some town-school collaboration.
Thank you. And it would start with data gathering to try and come up with where there might be a bang, because if there is, there could be a financial bang in how you manage their waste, as well as an educational bang if you're teaching better practices.
Okay, on my list.
And let me see. In terms of expanding what's at the dump, one of the things, and Ed's not on this call, and you can let us know if we should be inviting him or Tony each month, but we were talking at the end of 23 about trying to have other locations that people could drop if they don't have a sticker. So if we can have the data on where the program is at now, and then we can look at where the schools are, which is nowhere, we might be able to see, does it make sense to find a way for more people to take their food out of their waste? And that might
be interesting, by the way, is I get calls from school parents a lot that are asking about kids and sidewalks and other environment and a whole lot of different topics. It strikes me that there are a lot of members of that community who could be your foot soldiers on something like this once they've got a plan and a mission. So I know a lot of those people, and when it gets to the point where you've got a program, just the rollout is going to be a lot more effective if you've got a ton of people doing just a little bit on their own and promoting it within their groups.
If we had good data from the schools, we can show the schools what every community from Westport to New Canaan to West Hartford is doing right now, in either on a prototype basis in a single school, which is how you have to start, or district wide, where tables and waste stations are set up, fresh food is captured and donated, garbage is separated so it doesn't. So there are plans. Carolyn Bain is an expert in this, and she taught me a lot. And we just got stopped at the end of 23. So I think picking that up picking it up to either give more citizens the chance to drop off their food waste than those that come to the dump. But the second piece is the schools. is to start to educate, because then the parents know what the kids do.
All right, I got about 2 minutes, but I've got on my to-do list. I'll send that note to Alan and of course copy you, Kathy, and let's resurrect that. Anything else I can do or talk about before I have to go?
I would like to open it up if there's anything directly that the folks on the committee would like to ask you before you run out.
Yeah, just I want to make a comment. I think I love the idea of, John talking about really bringing different committees. I am really looking from resource angle because, human resource is limited. I think I worry everybody is doing the same things, not even talking to each other. And then everybody thinks nothing's happening. I think bringing everybody together as a cohesive, I don't know, whatever the platform is a great idea and love to contribute in whatever we can. So that's all I wanted to say.
I agree. And as I've said a few times, copying and plagiarism is bad when you're in school. It's great at all other times. So if you guys know of other towns that are doing some aspect of this in a really great way that we can borrow from shamelessly, I'm all ears. Would love to hear that. So over the course of this year, certainly collect those thoughts and experiences and be prepared to bring them up when we need to for setting a path forward.
Excellent.
Okay, I got to run, team, but
thank you
for having me. I'm excited
John,
to hear.
John,
I really
before
appreciate all of you doing. Go ahead, Cliff.
John, I was just wondering quickly, would it be possible to provide to us the information about the new contract we have for removal of things from the transfer station? In particular, I'm interested in whether or not we're being paid for the metal, which has value, and the cardboard, which also has value. But generally speaking, all the costs involved at this point with the new contract.
Yeah, we certainly you can do that. And if you've got questions, what I can do is get you connected with Ed Gentile, and he can show you what's in that contract. These are all public records, so you're welcome to take a look at that. That's a fast evolving world, partly because single stream recycling doesn't really work in the way I think people envisioned it to work. And so it's not the economics that we'd hope for, to be quite frank, and that's what's caused a significant increase in those costs that you'll see in this contract. But definitely take a look at all that. You're right about metal and cardboard. Those are definitely sources of value in a recycling stream, and there's different places where the separation of all that is done. So if you go over to the station that's in Stamford, just across the border there on West Road, they do a lot of separation of those materials on site there. One of the questions I had for Ed the other day was whether there was a role in the town in better educating people about their own efforts, individual efforts, to do that separation, and would that help us in some way if people were better about that? And I don't have a clear answer about that yet.
John, I think
you're exactly, Kathy, excuse me, you're exactly on the point that I'm trying to make, because we have tons of cardboard going into single stream and we're paying for that to go out. Whereas when it's in the cardboard, we should be getting paid for it. So, and that's an education thing. I can't tell you how many people I have tried to help at the dump to understand the difference between boxboard and cardboard. So anyway, I'll leave it at that.
All right, more to come. I will definitely get you in contact with Ed about that.
Okay, John, thank you for joining us.
All right, team.
It's been a pleasure.
All right, happy Wednesday. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, action to do's. Shall we kind of assign immediate to do's on these subjects? I think communication, Lauren, you'll figure out with Natalie what's going on. Do you want to get a hold of Marley to see what she wants from the newsletter, or just, after you talk to Natalie, or do you want me to call Marley? How do you want to start that kind of communication?
Yeah, I just assumed that Natalie would have information on how to move forward with Marley and the rest of.
Yeah, and then just you can follow up with her. She's great. I may send her a little note saying we're back. And then she'll probably be hearing from you. She was great to work with when we did the point, the points application.
Really, she's great. That's great. If you want to copy me, that's helpful.
Yeah. As
I
far
had just
as far as I just wanted to, as far as the school goes, we'll see if he gets us someone right away, and then we'll try to get a meeting over there and get a group to be able to present to him different parts of what they're not doing, or at least agree to give us information that could help us determine if there are things they could be doing. But I guess we have to get an introduction, which has been far from coming. We tried. Cliff had multiple exchanges, and they never got us a meeting. So maybe John will have better luck with.
Is there
with
a
it.
Dropbox or a place where information is kept that you could give us, those of us who haven't been privy to the workings of this group in the past, like what's going on or what? Okay, because didn't they do studies about the schools before in the past? I know we had to renew everything and refresh, but is there some information we can leverage from before, or are we just kind of starting scratch?
We'd probably be asking Carolyn. We could, in fact, she may be willing to do some of those background research meetings to share her knowledge. We also get a lot of knowledge from going to other meetings, Sustainable Fairfield County, and some things where we get information in our own personal education that weren't really committee related, where we have access to what other towns are doing. By going to, we go to, some of us, not we, some of us have been going to monthly meetings for other groups and then learning from that. But there's no central place. You're absolutely right, Lauren, where all of this was kept for the town or for the committee. It's been individual work.
So should we start one?
I don't see why we couldn't have a place to put interesting information. I had one idea, like I just read an article from the New York Times written by a friend of mine on electric school buses that was quite fascinating. And I was thinking, gee, maybe each one of us should bring something to a meeting that we learned that we could share, or maybe there's a way, like you say, to build our own little library. I'm not the person to do that, but yes, work on the West Hartford schools presentation that I know exists. Work on reading about different things that Sustainable Fairfield County gives us. Maybe if we had a place to keep some of that stuff, it would be a nice library.
Is there somebody that's tech savvy that can set up a Google Drive or something for us? Or should we work with the town or?
Yeah, Lauren, we had talked about it. I think one of the challenge I think we had was anything we collect, it becomes auditable, right? It becomes a town record. And from my conversation, that's why I don't know if we can set up an outside Google Drive because it's all official records at that point. So that's why we stayed away from it. And I did not think I spoke to, because I'm the tech guy here, right? So I did speak to a lot of people, on the town side, if they have like a SharePoint site or anything. I did not, but there's the thing, right? How is John and his team maintaining their own repositories of content? We need to figure out. They should have somewhere a place. I think
they had one for EPC. They have one for EPC. And I know they're getting better. Like they gave us all tablets when I was at EPC. So they have drop places to put things and we can organize them. I think it might add value for us.
Sorry, I got unfortunately leave. I have a work meeting to run for. Thank you, Kathy. We look forward for the meeting minutes and then go from there. Okay.
Thank you. Lauren, you raised a great question. I wish John was still on the phone. That's a great question. And I don't know what you got an EPC as a commission, as a appointed commission with authority, how that varies from an advisory committee with no authority. So we were, I think, to the degree that Carolyn was using the social media to share information that was building a body of knowledge, whether it be really interesting article on electric school buses and the health of children, we'd put it out there. And so the social media might have a record of things we did, and she has a folder in her own house or on her own computer, but we didn't have, unless we presented it to the Board of Ed, Ed or the selectmen, there wasn't a kept record.
I mean, I think
add things
legally,
to our minutes, right? We could say, I want to add things to the minutes and they would be part of our record. I don't know. We have to probably figure this out, what we can do.
yeah, just, I mean, I don't want to belabor this, but just legally, I don't see how, even if we asked our attorneys or like, it's auditable, I get that, but if we use our discretion and put the things, I don't see how it could be harmful. We can put all of the we can do it by category for sustainable CT and things like that. I mean, there's got to be a way we can put things in one place so that we all have access, because I don't have access to anything that we've done and I'd love to see it.
The best thing is the actual final application. Did you read our application on sustainable CT?
But there's like, if we want to renew things, there's other materials we could work off of that.
Oh, absolutely. I was just saying something to read that's all documented, the entire 72 actions with all of their background information, all of the printouts, every single piece of paper is there, and that's the only record.
So like we could drag all of that into folders and start with that, to make it organized, and then add to that. I guess it's just my thought, but
and I guess the question is, who can keep that body of information? Can that be on your computer or my computer or Mohan's? Does it have to be at the town? I don't know the answer to that. That's really the question.
With a Google Drive, it's not on somebody's computer. It's on a centralized server. And you make a great point. And I know that Carolyn has files on her computer. I have files on mine. Mohan certainly has his. I have a fair amount on this school food scrap question. Mohan particularly on the question of EVs. Caroline on probably everything. So you make a good point, and I guess the question is, A, is this something we all want? And B, are we going to put it on a Google Drive? And then who's going to administer it?
And so probably a question that I can get answered is there an objection to a Google Drive for the work and, studies and research, and like the presentations that we gave to the library on trash, Carolyn and I, that has a lot of data in it and photographs and all that stuff. If there's an objection to having one central location that is available for all of us to look at. Because you're right, we all have things. I have an ACS folder with every magazine article we ever wrote, with every presentation we ever gave, with the recommendation on leaf blowers. I mean, there is a lot of stuff, Lauren, that was done. Unfortunately, we hit that wall at the end of 2023, and it's just frozen. And how to get it all, to get that institutional knowledge in one place. I think you're absolutely right. So if I ask the town if there's an issue with that, that would be my to do, as well as sending out the meeting schedule, which can be adjusted later. Cliff, do you want to pull together the information and share with us for the schools what you gave to Mr. Adley a couple of years ago? Because that's a perfect example if we're going to try to get to him.
Yes, I will pull out the things that I have on food recycling in schools, and I'll wait to be told where to send it.
Well, communicate it to us in the committee, to the five members of the committee. This is what you communicated to Adley in 2023 that we never was acted on. Right?
Sure.
Right there.
Yeah. And I will also follow up with Ed Gentile as suggested about the financial aspects of the new contract at the transfer station.
And Cliff, I will resend to you the document that Carolyn always collected, which had the tonnage by month, because Ed has that too. And the last one that I have is through 2022. So they have to exist for 2023 and 2024. Because that helps us understand the cost, and it's just a written report. I emailed it last night, but I'll send it again to you. And if you're going to reach out to Ed, you could actually ask for that as well.
Yeah, I could do that. I just need a reminder. I have the document you've already sent out.
Okay. And let's see, Mohan had to leave because before you joined, Lauren, before we were online, we were beginning to ask if he had any follow-up with Tony Campanella and DPW on the proposal that they ended 2023 with about moving forward with some EV infrastructure planning. And so he's off the call, but I will ask him via email to let us know, to reach out to Tony and see if there's been anything that's been done since they worked together in 2023.
Like, well, the town was going to buy EVs or invest
Well,
in?
no, it was, I mean, they did a lot
assessment?
of work on the infrastructure part of it, like,
Oh, like
would you
stations.
begin to have a charging station? Where would you put them? Should the town have one? Would they be paid
We
for?
saw a couple get approved through EPC last year, so there has been something done.
But privately, probably, right? This would have been the town
Um,
purchasing the equipment. Like right now, there's a lot of grant money, so that the grant money would do the digging and do the installation and provide. There was a lot of stuff that you could do if you wanted to put one at town hall for your employees. The laws are you're going to have them in school parking lots in the future. I mean, there's a lot of things that are coming, but we hadn't really done any work on it yet. So
we should study the study.
I need to end quickly because I have a call coming in from a doctor that I need to take. So I'm going to mute myself for a minute.
Still talking on mute.
So while she's muted, it's a shame because I'd love her to hear this. We did more than just infrastructure. We have information about the use of EVs by the police department in Westport. We had information about EV school buses. We looked at, when do EVs make sense for a town and when do they not make sense for a town? So for example, the Department of Ed has a number of vehicles that just go locally, and at night they can recharge. We're aware of a lot of this stuff, and on contrary to what some people think, we would not be at the vanguard of this. We're 5 to 8 years behind, actually. So we have a fair amount of information, but as was discussed earlier, this is on individuals' computers, not on some shared drive.
Well, since Kathy's on the call, would it be appropriate to ask our other folks on the phone, just while we have some time, what their interests are?
Sounds like a great idea to me.
How about who are the new folks? Jason? I don't know who Karen. We heard from Natalie.
Karen is the town administrator who sets up the call, so she's not a member of the
She's
committee.
not on the call.
And I'm just a member of the public. I'm just watching.
I think it's
Jason. Jason is attending to audit to see whether he would like to apply to be appointed to the committee.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But I am very interested in the topics that you guys are talking about, and it seems very interesting. And I'll definitely follow up with Kathy afterwards.
Yeah, and your background is sort of an technical or engineering background, is that correct?
No. I've worked in investment banking for, a little bit over 20 years now. And one of the areas that I've had a lot of focus on is like renewables and energy transition and like clean tech. So,
Okay.
and now I work at a small boutique. It's an international firm, but it's relatively small, which basically focuses just on renewables, clean tech, and energy transition. So, like EV charging infrastructure, like we've worked with a lot of companies to do that, which is really interesting. And, like I'm trying to think of things that are like more potentially municipal oriented, which would be like renewable natural gas, biofuels, those types of things, which I'm sure is where you're kind of getting at with the whole food thing for feedstock, probably for some sort of biomass or energy kind of conversion, or I don't know, something like that. But but it's really, all this stuff is really interesting to me. So thanks so much for letting me participate today and figure it out.
Okay, great. That'd be great. I believe you already had an introduction. It was through the RTC. I
Yeah.
believe what happens is a recommendation is made to the Board of Selectmen if someone is interested
Okay.
to be appointed, and the Board of Selectmen makes a vote. So that's the process for joining the committee.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
and if you're interested, you should definitely follow up. But I will certainly be happy to touch base with you via email.
And there's like a big, obviously, PR element to the committee too, which is making sure that people understand, the simple ways that they could actually change their behavior potentially to facilitate sustainability also, which is the interesting thing you were talking about with separating cardboard and metal and being able to, receive payment for it as opposed to single streaming everything. I also grew up in Darien, so I went to Oxridge, and I'm a Darien High School graduate.
Awesome.
I have two kids. One's in college and one is still at the high school. So.
Well, you can be one of the spies of what they do and don't do at the high school level. I'll tell you that what we do know is they do nothing. And
No, definitely. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's like a really interesting area where there has to be just so much, yeah, like food waste coming out of there. I mean, like
the big picture behind it is that they pay to have the waste. You pay to have your municipal waste hauled, and food is up to about a quarter of the weight of it. And so the state has a massive crisis. And the problem is, unless we can get that, the only way to keep waste costs in line is to get the food out of the waste stream. And yes, the food out of the waste stream would go to a composting or a bio thing. But the town has to commit resources in order to make that happen. That's human behavior. That's different garbage cans, that's paying for a different hauler, and there's a lot of work to get the community to want to buy into that. And right now we only have one volunteer program at the town, and it's successful, but it isn't scaled up. And that's we scale that.
Whenever you do anything with the schools, do you then have to go? I know he had mentioned Adley, so you probably obviously have to go to the Board of Ed for anything that you do at the schools. Is that kind of how that all works?
Well, Adley and the Board of Ed have their own budget. The selectmen have nothing to do with it, but the selectmen do have some sway, at least to have you have a conversation to see if there's a fit. I think that's where it's at. And I know the school budget looks like it's contentious already this year, although I don't have kids in the school, so I haven't looked into the detail. But finding them to take on an expense to separate food waste would probably not be looked on as being very welcome, but there is access to a lot of grant money to do this. Yeah. And that's where we could come in if they would talk to us.
Yeah.
And they haven't.
It seems like the big concern with the Board of Ed budget is it just keeps on going up and up and up. Yeah. And then they have to shuffle stuff around from one area to another so that it doesn't go up too much. Yeah. Yeah. And will this committee be involved with some of the stuff on Great Island too?
We don't know. We have not been really asked to work on that.
Yeah. Interesting.
It would be a great question to John. And I think that goes to how he's saying how some of these committees might work together, for a broader environmental kind of viewpoint. So, okay.
Did I hear you say, Kathy, that they weren't even doing basic recycling? Like 101, sorry, this is an audible video, but like, it's a Connecticut law for schools to recycle. Do we know that? Because it is. Like, is that something we're putting in front of them as a regulatory position?
I think different groups, parent groups, green teams, ACS. I sat with the director of facilities with Carolyn Bain to try and begin to have, proper blue bins. They used to do training, recycling 101.
So we can remind them it is a regulatory requirement and a law. It's gently. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there.
I could. And
it's not really like a business decision. Like this is required. So
and the feedback of having the equipment and who moves the bins and how often they do and when the trash gets picked up and what the custodians do. And I mean,
Yeah.
we haven't had a conversation since early in almost 2 years with the school department. So I speak of what I knew historically. Let's just put it that way. And it is time to have the conversations again. And it's both from an environmental message, but I think there's a large financial message that could help them as the cost of waste hauling are going up, that we could help them manage that.
You know, the interesting thing too is, all these kids at Darien High School, they're all looking for like really interesting ways to create like volunteer organizations to be a part of. And I don't know, maybe you could enlist a bunch of very industrious high school kids to actually do some of this, if not a lot of it, in terms of, kind of creating the.
That has been tried. There's like an environmental group and the AP environmental class and different things. There have been different groups that have done it, but we've never gotten it off the ground. There's never been a champion and a momentum. We need a champion and we need some momentum. And I'm hearing John is a champion to say, please talk to these people. And then we can see from there whether there's what the experience at the other school systems is. Anything that's happened requires a champion. It has to be a teacher that's willing to take it on, a principal who's willing to take it on, a custodial group that says it's okay, it's not in my union contract, but I'll roll a food bin. It's champions. It's a financial story, and it's champions that are willing to do the labor. And a lot of schools have done work, and there's a lot we could learn before we do anything. But we need to know where they're starting. And I can tell you, they're not separating food, either garbage or reusable food that could go get donated, because there's food pickup services all over Fairfield County that take unused food to other after school programs and things like that. We don't participate in any of that. To my knowledge, we do not separate the food for compost, and I don't believe we even separate plastics or paper. So that's for the next time. Noodle, this is where we can work all month. We don't have to wait till our next meeting to find something out and start banging on doors. And with that, I would like to adjourn this meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Hey, I'm sorry, guys. One more thing. Can we reach out to Bill Cavers? To join as the group as well? We still have one more open seat, right?
A great name. I bumped into him about a month ago.
He's so great.
Do you know him well enough to ask him?
Yeah, sure. He came to that, Cliff, you were there, right? He came to the that tree presentation by Juliet. That was absolutely amazing in town.
He's a wonderful guy. He's been very collaborative with us in the past. I'd be surprised if he would feel like he has the bandwidth to join us, but he'd be more than welcome.
He didn't get onto the EPC that the DTC nominated him for. The DTC nominated him for the Environmental Protection Commission, and I don't think he got onto that. So I think he might be willing to consider us.
Fantastic. Why don't you ask him? And with that good point, I will do as you've asked, Kathy, and I will move to adjourn.
I will second that. I need to get back to my job.
This was a great meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.